The microphone's screech echoed through the ballroom, silencing the 300 guests instantly. I stood there, frozen in my silver sequined gown, clutching a glass of champagne that suddenly felt like lead in my hand. My husband, Robert, the man I had devoted 25 years of my life to, was standing on the stage, flushed with expensive scotch and the adoration of the crowd. He held the microphone loosely, his other arm wrapped possessively around the waist of my younger sister, Jessica. They were laughing. Actually laughing. "Let's be honest, everyone," Robert's voice boomed, slurring slightly, but loud enough to reach the back of the hall. "I built this empire. Me, my hard work, my genius. And Linda? Well, look at her." He pointed a finger at me, and 300 pairs of eyes followed it. I felt like a specimen under a microscope. Linda has been a good spectator, but useless. Frankly, she's just dead weight at this point. A relic from a time when I had lower standards. Tonight isn't just about 25 years of the past. It's about upgrading for the future. The room went deadly silent. My sister, my own flesh and blood, giggled and whispered something in his ear, biting her lip in a way that made my stomach turn. I looked at my mother in the front row, expecting outrage, but she just sipped her wine and looked away, as if my humiliation was simply an awkward pause in the dinner service. I felt the tears burning my eyes, threatening to spill over and ruin the makeup that had taken me 2 hours to apply. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear into the floorboards. But then, my hand brushed against the cold, hard plastic of the flash drive in my clutch purse. The metal felt like ice against my feverish skin. They thought I was crying because I was broken. They didn't know I was crying because I knew exactly what was going to happen in 5 minutes when the retrospective slideshow began. Robert had just called me useless. He was about to find out just how useful I could be at destroying his entire life. It wasn't always like this. If you looked at us 25 years ago, you wouldn't recognize the monster on that stage. When I met Robert, he was a broke law student with holes in his shoes, and a dream that was too big for his empty pockets. I was the one working double shifts at the diner, coming home smelling like grease and old coffee, counting every penny so he could buy textbooks. I was the one who typed his papers until my fingers cramped because he couldn't afford a computer. I remember the night he passed the bar exam. We celebrated with a $5 pizza on the floor of our studio apartment. He looked me in the eyes, tears streaming down his face, and swore that he would give me the world. He said I was his rock, his muse, the only reason he made it. "I will spend the rest of my life repaying you, Linda," he had whispered. I believed him. I foolishly, blindly believed him. Over the years, as his firm grew and the money started pouring in, I faded into the background. I gave up my career in interior design to raise our twins, to manage his social calendar, to host the dinner parties that impressed his clients. I curated his image. I smoothed over his rough edges. When his mother got Alzheimer's, who changed her sheets and fed her with a spoon? It wasn't Robert. It was me. I lost my identity so he could build his, and I did it happily, because I thought we were a team. I thought we were building our life. If you believe that loyalty should mean something, and that a woman who builds a man from nothing deserves to be treated like a queen, not a servant, please hit the like button right now. It breaks my heart to know how many of us are discarded the moment our husbands taste a little bit of success. Show me that I'm not alone in believing that this kind of betrayal deserves a punishment that fits the crime. But the real nightmare didn't start with his success. It started closer to home. My sister, Jessica, was always the wild one, the one who needed bailing out, both financially and emotionally. I loved her. I protected her. When she lost her apartment 6 months ago, I was the one who convinced Robert to let her stay in our guest house. Just until she gets back on her feet, I had begged him. I should have seen the signs. The lingering glances across the dinner table. The way Robert suddenly started caring about his appearance, dyeing his gray hair and buying fitted suits. The way Jessica started wearing my old perfumes and borrowing my jewelry without asking. I dismissed it all. I told myself I was being paranoid, a jealous, insecure old woman. After all, she was my sister, and he was my husband of 25 years. There are lines you just don't cross. Or so I thought. 2 days before the anniversary party, I came home early from a charity luncheon. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I walked past Robert's home office and heard giggling. Not the innocent kind. It was the low, husky laugh Jessica used when she was flirting. I stopped. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open just an inch, and there they were. On the mahogany desk I had bought him for his 40th birthday. They were looking at a laptop screen, browsing real estate listings in Italy. "When do we tell her?" Jessica asked, tracing a finger down Robert's tie. "At the party," Robert replied, his voice cold and devoid of any emotion. "I'm announcing the divorce on stage. I want it public. I want her to be too humiliated to fight for the assets. If she looks weak, the judge will see her as unstable. We'll take the house, the accounts, everything. She's useless, Jess. She doesn't know anything about our finances. She'll be lucky if she walks away with her car." I didn't scream. I didn't burst in. I simply pulled out my phone, pressed record, and captured every single word of their plot. I recorded them mocking my cooking, laughing about how gullible I was, and planning to leave me destitute. Then, I quietly walked away. I went to my car, drove to a parking lot 3 blocks away, and screamed until my throat bled. But when the tears stopped, a cold calm washed over me. They thought I was useless. They thought I didn't know about the finances. What Robert forgot was that before I was his wife, I was the one who did the bookkeeping for his first firm. I knew where the bodies were buried. I knew about the offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. I knew about the tax evasion he committed 5 years ago to buy that yacht. And most importantly, I knew that the retrospective slideshow for our anniversary was being run from a laptop that was currently sitting on the kitchen counter, unlocked. I went home, wiped my face, and smiled. I had 48 hours to prepare the most spectacular show of his life. The next 48 hours were an exercise in torture. I had to look at the man who was planning to destroy me and ask him if he wanted sugar in his coffee. I had to smile at my sister while she sat at my kitchen island, eating my food and texting my husband right in front of my face. Every fiber of my being screamed at me to claw their eyes out, to scream, to burn the house down. But I didn't. I channeled every ounce of rage into a cold, hard focus. I was an actress in the performance of a lifetime. While Robert was at work, thinking he was untouchable, I wasn't just crying. I was busy. I went into his office, the one he thought was locked, forgetting I had the spare key hidden in a hollow book on the shelf. I didn't just find the divorce papers drafted by his lawyers. I found something much more interesting. Hidden in the bottom drawer, under a stack of old files, was a ledger, a handwritten ledger. It detailed consulting fees paid to a shell company that didn't exist. Millions of dollars siphoned from his firm's clients over the last decade. He wasn't just a cheater, he was a felon. And my sister? I found her emails on his iPad. She wasn't just his lover, she was his accomplice. She had been helping him launder the money through art purchases in Europe. They were planning to run away to Lake Como with a fortune stolen from innocent people. I took photos of every page. I downloaded every email. I sent copies to 3 different cloud servers and a USB drive that I now wore on a chain around my neck, tucked under my shirt. The morning of the anniversary arrived with a sick sense of irony. It was a beautiful, sunny day. Jessica knocked on my bedroom door, holding a garment bag. "Happy anniversary, sis," she chirped, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "I brought your dress from the cleaners. I hope it still fits. You know, metabolism really slows down after 50. It would be a shame if you looked like a stuffed sausage tonight." She smirked, waiting for me to crumble. In the past, I would have felt insecure. I would have skipped dinner. But today, I just smiled. "Thank you, Jessica," I said, smoothing the silk of the gown. "You're right. Age changes things. It makes you wiser. It makes you see things clearly that you missed when you were young and naive." She frowned, confused by my confidence, but quickly shook it off. "Well, hurry up. Robert is waiting. We don't want to keep the man of the hour waiting, do we?" The car ride to the venue was silent. Robert sat in the front with the driver, barking orders into his phone. Jessica sat next to me in the back, humming a tune. I looked out the window, watching the city pass by, knowing that by tomorrow, this car, this lifestyle, this facade, would all be gone. When we arrived at the grand ballroom, it was a display of obscene wealth. Ice sculptures, mountains of caviar, and a guest list that included judges, politicians, and business tycoons. They all smiled at me, the dutiful wife, offering hollow congratulations. 25 years. What a milestone, they said. If only they knew that the groom was planning to serve divorce papers instead of cake. But the worst moment came during the cocktail hour. My mother-in-law, Barbara, cornered me near the bar. She had never liked me. To her, I was just the waitress her golden boy made the mistake of marrying. "Linda," she sneered, looking me up and down with disdain. "Enjoying the champagne? Make sure you don't drink too much. It's not unbecoming for a woman of your station to be sloppy. Robert needs a partner who can keep up with him, not an anchor dragging him down. Honestly, I'm surprised he kept you around this long. If it were up to me, he would have upgraded years ago." She patted my arm patronizingly and walked away to greet Jessica with a warm hug. It hit me then. She knew. She knew about the affair. She knew about the plan. She was probably the one who encouraged it. I stood there, gripping my glass so hard I thought it would shatter. The disrespect was suffocating. Not only was my husband betraying me with my sister, but his mother was cheering from the sidelines. I have to ask you something, and be honest with me in the comments. What would you do if your mother-in-law looked you in the eye and told you that you were expired goods, knowing full well her son was cheating on you? Would you have thrown that drink in her face and caused a scene right there? Or would you have done what I did, swallowed the bile, fixed your lipstick, and waited for the perfect moment to strike? Tell me below, because it took every ounce of my strength not to slap her right then and there. The dinner service began. I sat at the head table, sandwiched between the two traitors. Robert barely looked at me. He spent the entire meal texting under the table, his knee brushing against Jessica's leg. I saw them exchanging glances, trying to suppress their laughter. They were high on adrenaline, thrilled by their own wickedness. They thought I was oblivious. They thought I was the useless housewife who was just happy to be included. Then, the lights dimmed. The moment I had been dreading and anticipating arrived. The spotlight hit the stage. Robert stood up, adjusted his tie, and walked to the microphone. The applause was deafening. He soaked it up. A king in his castle. He started his speech with the usual platitudes. "Thank you all for coming. Hard work. Dedication." And then, he invited Jessica up to the stage. "I want to invite my sister-in-law Jessica up here. She's been such a support system for the family." Jessica glided up the stairs, beaming. She stood next to him, and that's when he put his arm around her. That's when he said those words from the beginning of the night. That's when he called me useless and dead weight in front of 300 people. The room was still silent, recovering from his shock announcement. He was smirking, waiting for me to run out crying so he could play the victim of an unstable wife. He expected a breakdown. Instead, I stood up slowly. The chair scraped loudly against the floor, echoing in the silent hall. I didn't run to the exit. I walked toward the DJ booth. Robert frowned, confused. "Linda, where are you going?" "The exit is that way." I didn't answer. I reached the booth where the confused technician was waiting to play the retrospective slideshow Robert had prepared, a montage of photos of him receiving awards, with me barely visible in the background. "Excuse me," I said to the technician, my voice calm and steady. "There's been a last-minute change to the program. Robert wants to play the special tribute video first." I handed him the flash drive, the one I had been clutching all night. Robert's voice boomed over the speakers again, tinged with annoyance. "Linda, sit down. Don't embarrass yourself further." I turned to face the stage, locking eyes with him. I smiled, a real, genuine smile. "I'm not embarrassing myself, Robert," I said, my voice projecting clearly without a microphone. "I'm just giving you the upgrade you asked for." I nodded to the technician. He pressed play. The giant screen behind Robert and Jessica, which was supposed to show a photo of Robert shaking hands with the mayor, flickered to life, but it wasn't a photo. It was a video. And the audio that blasted through the high-quality surround sound system wasn't sentimental piano music. It was the sound of Jessica's voice. "He's so stupid, Jess. He actually thinks I love him. I just need access to the offshore account codes before I dump him." The color drained from Robert's face faster than water from a drain. The sound of Jessica's voice on the giant screen was crisp, clear, and absolutely devastating. The video I had compiled wasn't just a sex tape. That would have been too simple. No, I had edited together a masterclass in betrayal. On the screen, the footage shifted to a hidden camera angle in the living room, recorded just 3 days ago. Jessica was on the phone, pacing back and forth, holding a glass of my wine. "I know, baby, I know," Jessica said to whoever was on the other end of the line, and it clearly wasn't Robert. "I just need a few more months. The old fool is completely wrapped around my finger. He actually thinks I'm attracted to him. It's pathetic. Have you seen him? He looks like a melted candle. But once he divorces Linda and transfers the assets to the new account, I'll drain it and fly to meet you. We'll be set for life." A collective gasp swept through the room like a shockwave. 300 heads turned from the screen to the stage. Jessica stood there, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, her face a mask of pure terror. Robert slowly turned to look at her. The hand that had been possessively wrapped around her waist dropped to his side as if he had been burned. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a look of confusion and dawning horror. "You," Robert stammered, his voice barely audible over the speakers that were still amplifying his humiliation. You said I was your soulmate, but the video wasn't done." The screen flickered again. Now it was Robert's turn. The footage showed him in his office, boasting to Jessica. "Don't worry about the audit," Robert said on screen, laughing as he poured a drink. "I hid the $2 million from the Anderson account in the shell company. Linda is too stupid to check the Cayman files. By the time the IRS figures it out, we'll be non-extraditable. I'm robbing them blind, Jess, and they're thanking me for it." The silence in the ballroom broke. It shattered. The room erupted into chaos. I saw the faces of Robert's business partners, the very people he had just confessed to stealing from, turning purple with rage. I saw Judge Miller, a guest at table 4, pulling out his phone, likely calling the district attorney. I watched from the DJ booth, feeling a calm I hadn't felt in years. It was surgical. It was precise. It was perfect. Robert looked at the screen, then at the angry crowd, and finally, his eyes found me. He looked small. He looked terrified. He looked like a man who realized he was standing on a trap door that had just opened. I walked slowly from the booth to the center of the dance floor. The crowd parted for me like the Red Sea. I didn't need a microphone. The silence of the room carried my voice to every corner. "You called me useless, Robert," I said, my voice steady and strong. "You said I was dead weight, but who do you think kept your secrets all these years? Who do you think covered your tracks? You made one fatal mistake. You forgot that the useless wife you wanted to discard was the only one smart enough to keep you out of jail. And now I'm the star witness." I turned to Jessica, who was now crying, mascara running down her face, reaching out for Robert, who recoiled from her touch. "And you, Jessica, you wanted his money? You can have it. Or at least what's left of it after the lawyers and the government are done with him. Which, by my calculations, will be absolutely nothing. Congratulations on your upgrade." It was a massacre. The social elite of the city were witnessing the live execution of a reputation. This is the moment we wait for. The moment the bully gets punched in the mouth. The moment the liar gets exposed. If you love seeing justice served cold, and believe that karma always comes for those who destroy families, make sure to subscribe to the channel right now. Join our community, because in our next story, a husband tries to fake his own death to escape alimony, only to find out his wife had already planned his funeral. You won't want to miss it. But the night wasn't over. As if on cue, and I admit, I may have tipped them off an hour before the party started, the double doors at the back of the ballroom burst open. Police officers, followed by federal agents and windbreakers marked IRS, marched into the room. The flashing blue and red lights from the patrol cars outside danced through the windows, painting the ballroom in frantic colors. "Robert Sterling," an agent shouted, flashing a badge. "You are under arrest for embezzlement, tax fraud, and money laundering." Robert tried to run. It was a pathetic attempt. He stumbled down the stage steps, tripping over the long train of Jessica's dress. He fell flat on his face at the feet of his biggest client. 2 officers were on him in seconds, pulling his arms behind his back. The sound of handcuffs clicking shut was the sweetest music I had ever heard. Linda, tell them!" Robert screamed as they hauled him up, his perfectly dyed hair now a mess. "Tell them it's a mistake. I'm your husband. You have to help me." I looked at him. Then I looked at the glass of champagne in my hand. I took a slow sip. "My husband died a long time ago, officer," I said coldly. "That man is just a stranger who stole 25 years of my life." Then they turned to Jessica. She tried to blend into the crowd, but there was nowhere to go. "Jessica Miller?" the agent asked. "We have digital evidence linking you to the laundering scheme. You're coming with us too." Her scream as they cuffed her was piercing. She looked at me, pleading. "Linda, I'm your sister. Please, he made me do it." "He called you a bad investment in the video, Jessica." I replied. And honestly, I agree. As they were dragged out of the ballroom, past the shocked guests and the flashing cameras of the local press who had conveniently arrived just in time, I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was my mother-in-law, Barbara. She looked pale, trembling, her arrogance completely evaporated. "Linda," she whispered, her voice shaking. We need to stick together. The scandal, the house. Where will I go if they seize everything?" I looked at the woman who had mocked me an hour ago, the woman who cheered for my replacement. "I don't know, Barbara," I said, smoothing my dress, "but I hear the state nursing homes have vacancies. You should probably start making calls. Because the house, the one Robert owned, he signed the deed over to me 5 years ago to hide it from creditors. It's mine, and you have 24 hours to get your things out." I turned my back on her and walked out of the ballroom, leaving the chaos behind me. I walked out into the cool night air, took a deep breath, and felt something I hadn't felt in decades. I was free. It's been exactly 1 year since the Red Wedding, as the local tabloids called our anniversary party. The fallout was spectacular. A slow-motion car crash that the whole city couldn't stop watching. Robert didn't get a plea deal. The evidence I provided, the ledger, the emails, the recordings, was too damning. He was sentenced to 15 years in a federal penitentiary for grand larceny and tax evasion. The last time I saw him was at the sentencing hearing. He looked 20 years older, his hair gray and thinning, wearing a jumpsuit that was a far cry from his Italian wool suits. He tried to catch my eye as the bailiffs led him away, mouthing the word, "Please." I just looked at my watch. I had a plane to catch. Jessica avoided jail time by turning state's witness against Robert, but her life as she knew it is over. The scandal made her unemployable in any respectable firm. The last I heard, she moved 3 states away and is working double shifts at a diner, much like I did 30 years ago. Karma has a funny way of completing the circle. We don't speak. She sent me a letter begging for money last Christmas. I returned it unopened, with a stamp that said, "Return to sender, address unknown." As for Barbara, my delightful mother-in-law, I kept my word. The marshals escorted her out of the mansion 24 hours after the party. She tried to sue me for elder abuse, but the judge threw the case out before it even started, citing the fact that the house was legally mine and she had no tenancy agreement. She's currently living in a state-subsidized assisted living facility. It's clean, adequate, and completely devoid of luxury. I sent her a fruit basket when she moved in. It was mostly lemons. And me? I sold the mansion. It held too many ghosts, too many lies. I took the money, along with the substantial settlement I received from the divorce, and started over. I didn't retire, though. I remembered that Robert called me useless, so I started a consultancy firm. We specialize in forensic accounting for divorcing women. We help wives find the money their husbands are trying to hide. I am busier than ever, wealthier than I ever dreamed, and for the first time in 25 years, I am genuinely happy. I traveled to Italy last month, alone. I drank wine in Tuscany, not as a forgotten wife, but as a free woman. I realized that my value was never defined by the ring on my finger or the man on my arm. My value was in my resilience. Robert was right about one thing that night on stage. He did need an upgrade. He just didn't realize that by getting rid of him, I was the one who got the ultimate upgrade. My life back. To any woman listening to this who feels invisible, who feels like she's being taken for granted, or who suspects she's being played, don't ignore your intuition, and never ever let anyone convince you that you are powerless. You are not dead weight. You are the anchor, and if they try to cut you loose, make sure you own the boat. Thank you for staying with me until the very end, and for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive those moments, but knowing there are people like you who understand the value of truth makes it all worth it. I hope my journey gave you the courage you might need in your own battles. But believe it or not, my story is tame compared to what happened to the woman in the video that is on your screen right now. Imagine finding out your husband has a second family, but not across town, living secretly in the attic of your own home for 3 years. The way she discovered them and the trap she set is absolutely chilling. Click the video now to see how she handled the ultimate betrayal. You won't believe the twist ending.